Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Lance Sexton, Coleman instructor, webinar extraordinaire. Lance, thanks for joining us. Katie Roach, I got her name right finally. John Riosty, American banker. John, we appreciate you coming on Thursdays and telling us what's going on. We got a lot going on, so let's go to our poll question, and we'll do it. The Department of Justice held a press conference this morning. Don't worry if you didn't view it. It was a lot of people congratulating each other for a job well done. But how many people have been charged with PPP loan fraud as of this morning? Lance, what do you think? I know John knows the answer.
I'm going to guess somewhere 50 to 75 is my call.
And you are correct. 57. But they're for those of you who said 75 to 100 and over 100, they're hinting it will be well over 100 by the time they are through.
I was going to say we will get there, Bob.
Yeah,
we'll get to 100.
John, to put this in perspective, that's 57 out of 5,000 loans. Not too bad.
Right.
But that's the key to this whole equation is perspective. 5 million plus loans, I think it's actually more than 5.2 million. 500 plus billion in dollars lent. So until we get a full picture of the fraud, and maybe it hasn't come out yet, but the numbers they have today, when measured against those totals, are still very small.
Yes, very small. And what I appreciate it is the Department of Justice and Inspector General, FBI. I mean, they're right on top of this. They know who they are, and it's not TARP or taking 5-6 years to do these indictments. And this is an article John wrote. So, John, we'll sort of follow up. What is your PPP wish list?
Well, the people I talked to would say all of the above.
Yeah.
Oh, we were supposed to have that. How come we didn't have that, Joseph?
I think you can click more than one.
There we go. Surprise you, John?
A little bit. I thought more people would be interested in continuing the lending. And it's interesting, sort of the dichotomy between the relatively small amount that wants to authorize the program and the more than half, slightly more than half, that would allow struggling businesses to apply for a second loan, because the one has to come before the other.
Let's go to our final poll question. That's the poll question. Does your institution support granting a second PP loan to one of your borrowers?
I'm just interested, Bob, how many institutions will tool back up to do PPP again if there is a second round. I'm hopeful that
only 15% say no, which is, I thought that may be a little bit higher. But I'm glad to see 51% say yes. That means there's a commitment to working with the borrowers, a commitment to Main Street. John, let's turn it over to you. What's going on in the Hill these days?
I think we're in sort of a preparatory phase. Half of Congress is back. The other half is arriving back next week. And the hearings, there are some important hearings scheduled in the House next week. I think it's Tuesday. It's either Tuesday or Wednesday. But it's sort of, there will be an opportunity to discuss PPP at length at these hearings. So we'll get a sense of, what the members think, and also they'll have a chance, I think, to continue their negotiations face to face on the shape of a bill, whether it will be a really skinny bill that might affect nothing but PPP, whether it might just be a standalone PPP bill coming out of this, or a really broader stimulus bill involving in the neighborhood of $2 trillion. That's still up in the air this week.
John, the first question, first question I have is, does PPP still have bipartisan support?
Yes, everyone I talked to yesterday said it has overwhelming bipartisan support. So I think that's an important point to make. It's not just some Republicans and a lot of Democrats or vice versa. It's overwhelming numbers from both parties. It's hard to find anyone who opposes PPP and what they're talking about. Even the measures you might think are controversial, like increased funding and second loans. There's really no one in opposition to that.
Yeah, good. That's good to hear. There's a vote today, John. What is the vote in the Senate? Is that going to go through, or is that going to be on hold?
Well, I would tell you, I got caught up today in the news out of city with the retirement of the CEO and the new CEO. So I'm, at least for today, I'm a little behind the curve.
Well, Katie, I think Katie's following a little bit. Katie, what's going on today in the Senate?
So I've been following this morning. They've mostly been working on judicial nominations in the Senate. However, they just started to vote to limit debates on the COVID bill. It looks like it passed just now, so it looks like they're going to limit the debate on that and try to move forward as soon as possible. However, like John was saying, it might take a little while before we actually see the final bill.
Yeah. What is your prognosis, John?
Well, there's a lot of work to be done because the Senate will pass its bill, and this is, I guess, the so-called skinny bill, and the House will pass its bill. Maybe it will refer back to the bill it's already passed. There's wide variations between those, and getting something that both houses can agree on and the leadership of both houses can agree on is going to be tough, and that's why it's if there's an impasse there, it might be necessary, or people might find it necessary to break PPP away from this, get it out of all of those issues, because like I said, there's no opposition really to PPP.
Well, John, I really enjoyed your article. When did that hit? Did that hit yesterday?
That hit the day before yesterday. So
yeah,
I would have
very good article. Yeah, I thought it was a great recap of where we are, and just the hot topic points. It looks like the 150 is going to be the number of people you talk to, or that's what they're supporting.
Right.
And all of those on that wish list, do you see all of those things happening?
I see all of those happening, and I see none of those happening. I think it was
little tap dance.
Terrible to say, but there's I don't see an issue where a few of those will happen and maybe others won't, because as I was talking to some of the lobbyists for the varying groups, they were saying that probably one of the major Democratic priorities, which didn't feature high in my article, but it's still important, is sort of demographic or data reporting on all of the various people and the various types of businesses that got PPP. But there's no opposition to that on the Republican side. There are no sticking points as far as we can find. The sticking points are broader and outside of PPP.
Right. Lance, we're lost my train of thought, Lance. I had a great question for you.
Okay.
I know what it is. You're on the ground. September 24th is coming up around the corner. What are your borrowers saying? What is management at your institution saying to your borrowers on how we're going to handle that September 24th date? First of all, describe the September 24th date for us.
Again, say that I didn't hear all that, Bob. The September 24th date?
Yeah, what is that? Well, that is the date forgiveness expires.
Well, I think that most of us are still waiting for some guidance on how it's going to actually work. We're not sure. It's kind of a wait and see attitude with customers. So we're all waiting for additional information on how this is going to work.
Lance, in your footprint as you're driving around Northwest Arkansas, how many Main Street business closures are you seeing?
Arkansas is kind of an interesting state, Bob. Northwest Arkansas has what I call a blanket of insulation around it, called Walmart corporate headquarters, Tyson corporate headquarters. So the unemployment rate peaks a little bit. I think the restaurants, I have a daughter that works in the restaurant industry, and even with reduced restrictions on how many people can be inside, they seem to be doing fairly well. But as I drive through the community, it's, yes, there's an impact, but not as dramatic as I'm seeing in other large metropolitan areas.
Katie, what about you? What's going on in Washington?
I think, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question is, as you're driving around and for you as you're walking around, are you seeing businesses closing? What's happening in your little footprint of the world?
I'm seeing mostly just limited access to things that are making you have appointments before you come in to get your hair done. Things like if you want to go out to a restaurant, a lot of restaurants are just requiring that you make a reservation first. I'm not seeing a lot of closed businesses where I am, so maybe they've just gotten lucky or they're taking precautions. But I know that is really bad across the country. Even just in the process of moving up to Washington, I saw a lot of closed down businesses. So,
John, how's Virginia doing?
Well, I'll tell you, in my neighborhood, I do see some empty storefronts, and the ones that come to mind as I was thinking, as Katie was talking and as Lance was talking, are just small restaurants. They've been affected. It's not huge. I don't drive by strip malls that are empty, but some of the smaller strip malls that didn't necessarily have a big anchor, the restaurants there seem to be suffering.
Yeah.
I want to ask a quick question to Lance. We talk about restaurants here. I wonder about hotels, because I've been looking into hotels, and what I've been hearing is the hotels that relied on business travel, convention traffic, the hotels in major urban markets, they are the ones that are suffering the most. All of the industry has suffered some, but I wonder, if it's fair to say, and there's been some research to this point, that the drive hotels, the hotels that you can drive to that are not in resorts, they're beginning to bounce back, and they're nearing the break-even point.
Yeah, my experience in this market is there's some resorts in this state, and the resort locations are suffering quite a bit more. But, there's a hotel just across the street from us here. It's a Holiday Inn Express. When this first came out, you drive by, there'd be 6 cars in the parking lot. The parking lot's 60% full now. So they're starting to edge back, just like John said, toward the break-even point. So, and in Northwest Arkansas, there was a pause in travel, but you're starting to see those vendors travel back in to do business with Walmart, and the hotels seem to be doing well there as well. But the resorts that I drove by, John, there's a resort that I go to a fishing hole not too far away from it. Normally would have a full parking lot, had 2 cars in the parking lot.
Yeah.
John, are you following this story on ranking, the chair of the House Small Business Committee, Nadia Velasquez, and fintech lending?
No, I haven't been. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Again, what she's saying is, I'm putting words in her mouth. I don't think she has a problem with fintech lenders getting involved. She just has a problem with their usurious interest rates.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I have to admit again, I wasn't up on her comment, but I did, in working on that story, I talked to the fintechs, and they would like to be involved in SBA lending, conventional SBA lending 7A, once this is all passed. But they're saying the agency is just not been responsive yet to their application, and the farthest they've gotten is sort of an understanding that they can apply in and do business in one state, that they have to be regulated by a state regulator, and that's where they'll be confined, whether it's California or New York. That the agency has not given an answer on whether they could apply to multiple states.
Right.
But right now, the best they could do is pick a state, pick a regulator, and that's where they do business.
Great. Let's go to the questions. Lance, this was yesterday and I fumbled it, so we brought you in as the expert. Do we need to obtain original documentation for PPP loans?
Electronic copies are fine on the PPP loans.
I think I said that yesterday, Katie, but it was garbled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all weren't quite sure if you needed it eventually or not.
And basically, Lance, this is from Paul. Hey, good to talk to you, Paul. And Paul wants to know, just give us a recap. He's a business broker, and he's looking to sell or represent the sale of a business who obtained a PPP loan. What's the procedure? Do we need an SBA to sign off it, the lender to sign off it? What should he do?
Well, the problem is you've got a business that's being sold that has a PPP loan that has not been forgiven. And that throws a special kink into the SBA loan process. The simplest way to do it is to wait until PPP forgiveness occurs, and then it'll be a clean transaction. Lender could process it however is appropriate. But with the PPP loan still on the books, that loan's going to have to be processed at the Citrus Heights GP Processing Center because it is an existing SBA 7A loan. My expectation is they may require an escrow for the PPP loan balance to be held until the forgiveness process is completed to ensure that that's paid off if it's not forgiven. Again, the cleanest way to do it would be just to wait and consummate the transaction after PPP forgiveness occurs. But if you want to go ahead and do it prior to, you're going to have to submit a GP. And there are going to be a few additional requirements from SBA in relationship to that PPP loan.
Great advice. John, what are you working on?
Very shortly an article about hotels, so I took my hand. And one bank in particular that's always been a hotel bank and is sticking with its business model through thin, I guess. You say thick and thin, so right now it's thin.
Yeah, and I'd love to see what the stats are in terms of construction. We've asked some questions in the past on are you willing to undertake construction? Construction's 18, 24 months out. Who knows where we're going to be in 18, 24 months? Hopefully back to normal, but no one can predict it, unfortunately. Well, good. And one of the things I would be interested in your reporting is during the recession, they said 80%, 90% of all hotel transactions needed that SBA loan, whether it was 7A or 504. I'd be curious of what percentage of the sale transactions need the SBA these days.
I think it's very high, and I also think they're one of the industries that are pushing the hardest for the second loan.
And rightly so. I'm not, these poor entrepreneurs, especially related family members, they pour all their life savings into these ventures, and now all of a sudden they're facing financial ruin. That is not what they signed up for. We have our training courses coming up. Oh, let's see, there's another, one more question here. George says, is there any possibility that the provision for the first 6 months payments of a new SBA loan may be extended past the 927 date?
That's interesting. It's the first time I've heard that question. I haven't heard that brought up. It's very interesting. I just haven't heard that. That's not one of the proposals.
Great question. We don't know the answer. So we have our training course available. Please take advantage of our data, especially in these difficult times. We have the data of all the loan failures and charge-off stats. John, do you have that? We'll be happy to send in that report. Do you have that for us?
No, I'd like to get that.
Okay, Joseph, when you send that to John, and in there we have the hotel. The reason why hotels historical data is very, very strong, and that's why SBA lenders like it. And also hospitality is up there. I know hospitality is number one for B&I, and it's top 5 for SBA. I think the restaurants can beat that up. And finally, we have our new newsletter for the C-suite. Be sure and contact us then. John, I thank you very much for your time. You're very gracious, as always. I appreciate you taking the time out and joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.